On paper, it was a simple pickup truck. In reality, Ford packed the Ranchero with so much muscle, like the 429 Cobra Jet, that it smoked Corvettes, hauled lumber at 140 miles per hour, and left drag racers giddy and insurance agents terrified. But why did Ford gamble everything on such an absurd car-truck hybrid? And how did a utility vehicle become the most confusing and fastest Ford you've never heard of? The answer rewrites what you think you know about muscle cars, starting at the very beginning. Ford's big experiment started in 1957 when they introduced the Ranchero as a car with the back half chopped off and replaced by a truck bed. It was built on the Fairlane chassis, so not a real truck, but not quite a car either. Ford's marketing department tried to sell this new creation as the perfect solution for ranchers and contractors who needed to haul fence posts but still wanted to look sharp rolling into town. The message was simple. Why settle for a plain work truck when you could have style and utility in one package? Over the next decade, the Ranchero bounced around Ford's lineup. It shrank down to Falcon size in the early 60s, then grew up again, landing back on the mid-size Fairlane bones by 1966. But the real twist came in 1968. Ford redesigned the Ranchero on the Torino platform, stretching the wheelbase to 114 inches and giving it a front end that looked pure muscle car while the back still screamed pickup. The result was a vehicle that confused everyone who saw it. Dealers couldn't decide whether to park it next to the Mustangs or the Ford F-100 trucks. Customers weren't sure if they were supposed to haul hay, race Camaros, or both. This identity crisis set the stage for something wild, a car-truck hybrid with just enough room under the hood to fit Ford's biggest, baddest engines. The groundwork was laid for the Ranchero to become not just a curiosity, but a full-blown muscle machine hiding in plain sight. Ford could have left the Ranchero as a quirky utility vehicle, but in 1970 the engineers went completely off the rails. They stuffed the 429 Cobra Jet under the hood, a competition-grade V8 straight from the muscle car war. On paper, Ford claimed it made 370 horsepower. In reality, that number was pure insurance theater. The actual output, closer to 450 horsepower, came from a forged bottom end that could take endless abuse and a 4-barrel carburetor that gulped fuel like a college freshman at an open bar. The Ram Air setup was not just for show. The hood scoop was functional, forcing cold, dense air straight into the engine at speed. This was not a truck motor dressed up for marketing. It was the same iron block and internals found in Mustangs and Torinos, tearing up drag strips across America. The Ranchero did not just look tough, it was built to take punishment from the crankshaft up. Ford's order sheet let buyers tick boxes for heavy-duty suspension, a beefed-up rear end, and a transmission built to handle launches that snapped lesser drive shafts. It was as if Ford's engineers dared buyers to break it. And just when you thought a pickup with a muscle car engine was the punchline, the Ranchero delivered a knockout. A work truck that could haul plywood all week, then show up at the drag strip on Saturday and embarrass cars wearing racing stripes. It was absurd, it was brilliant, and it was all straight from the factory. Drag racers did not waste a second figuring out what Ford had accidentally built. The Ranchero rolled off the lot looking like a contractor's runabout, but underneath, it was a time bomb with a tailgate. The secret weapon was all about weight bias. With the big block V8 up front and nothing but air and a spare tire out back, racers would load sandbags or concrete blocks over the rear axle, instant traction for a truck that should have spun its tires into next week. Add a set of sticky slicks, toss the tailgate for a few pounds off, and the Ranchero was ready to launch. Stock, it could click off quarter-mile times in the high 13 seconds, 13.5, 13.7, sometimes 13.9 seconds at over 100 miles per hour. But with a little tuning and the right tricks, guys were breaking into the low 12 seconds. That is faster than most Corvettes, Camaros, or anything else with a back seat. One regional racer put it plain. People laughed when I rolled up to tech in a Ranchero. They stopped laughing when it left the line. On paper, it was a utility vehicle. On the strip, it was a sleeper missile. The best part? You could run a 12-second pass, then haul a load of lumber home for your day job. If you love the idea of a work truck embarrassing sports cars, hit that like button and send this to someone who thinks pickups cannot be fast. The Ranchero was just getting started. Next up, Ford would double down on torque and absurdity. But it gets weirder. Just when you thought Ford had emptied the tank with the Cobra Jet, they swapped in the 460 big block for 1973. On paper, the horsepower looked like a bad joke because emissions rules had choked it down to 220, but nobody cared about the top end anymore. The real story was torque. The 460 Ranchero made so much low-end shove, it felt like the Earth's rotation depended on your right foot. We are talking 500 pound-feet of torque, peaking just above idle, in a truck that weighed over 2 tons. The numbers said 0 to 60 in under 7 seconds if you could get it to hook up. But the real thrill came when you mashed the gas at a stoplight and the whole bed squatted like it was about to launch a boat. Forget the spec sheet. This was a mechanical brute built for one thing: moving mass with authority. Net ratings might have killed the muscle car era, but the Ranchero 460 still bullied sports cars in pure American fashion. The torque curve was not a curve, it was a wall. That meant hauling half a ton of concrete or embarrassing a Corvette on a highway roll was just another day at the office. On the street, the battle lines were clear: Ranchero or El Camino. Ford guys swore the Ranchero's weight balance and big block grunt made it king of the stoplight wars. Chevy loyalists fired back, with El Caminos packing 454 cubic inch engines, turning every drag strip into a proving ground and every bar into a debate hall. But while fans argued, reality hit hard. The Ranchero's muscle came with a brutal bill. Gas mileage was a punchline. You would see single digits if you had a heavy right foot. Insurance companies saw the 429 and 460 badges and raised premiums, sometimes higher than what you would pay for a Mustang or Torino. Dealers did not know what to do with them. Park it with the trucks? Buyers wanted payload and four-wheel drive. Park it with the cars? Shoppers wanted coupes, not a pickup with vinyl seats. Then the 1973 oil crisis landed like a hammer. Suddenly, 9 miles per gallon did not sound so rebellious. El Caminos and Rancheros sat unsold, gathering dust while fuel-efficient cars flew off the lot. Muscle truck fans kept the rivalry alive, but for most buyers, the Ranchero's wild side was just too expensive to live with. For decades, Rancheros with big block engines were the punchline at car shows and swap meets. Most ended up as battered work trucks or drag strip projects, run hard and forgotten. By the 1990s, you could buy a Survivor for the price of a used lawnmower. But then the collector's world woke up. Around 2010, auction blocks started lighting up with bidding wars over pristine 429 Cobra Jet Rancheros. Suddenly, the same trucks that once hauled drywall were pulling in $60,000 to $80,000 for clean originals. Documented drag racing builds, complete with old-time slips and faded sponsor decals, crossed $100,000. Restorers who had been mocked for saving these oddballs were now fielding calls from collectors desperate for a real muscle truck with a bed. The irony is brutal and beautiful. The Ranchero's awkward mix of muscle and utility, the very thing that tanked its sales, turned it into one of the hottest tickets in the muscle car market. Would you have gambled $4,000 in 1969 for a shot at Corvette money today? Or is a muscle truck just too absurd to daily drive? Drop your answer below and settle the debate. Today, the Ranchero's absurd legacy lives on every time a performance truck blurs the line between muscle and utility. As automakers chase horsepower in pickups, the question lingers: are we building tools or toys? Sometimes the wildest experiments become tomorrow's classics. Let me know which side you are on below.